everyone. So I think that I mentioned in an announcement to you today that we're going to dispense for the time being with a Dewey assignment. And so I'm going to have to upload a new assignment for you for a Library of Congress subject headings, which would have been the next assignment for you anyway. So disregard the assignment for next week. Okay. So, and please pay attention to the assignments if you're not already. So it's pretty important because that seems to be the only way I can communicate with all of you at one time, since we don't have regular classes. This is a very weird way of doing classes to me. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So here is the PowerPoint for today. I'm going to go ahead and play the slideshow from the beginning. Okay, so now we're going to talk about an introduction to identifying manifestations. So now we're going to be talking about coding records as RDA records and sources, transcription, and where in RDA are the instructions, which is always fun. So in order to code records as RDA records and not as AACR2 records, you have to select the leader within the leader, the ISBD, the I for ISBD. So that means that it's in the 18 level. It's in the leader 18 field of the form. So there will be a drop-down menu. This is not immediately obvious right now. I can't show you because let's see. We'd have to be in an actual record right now for me to be able to show you this. But there's a drop-down menu. So if you were to select A from that drop-down menu, that is going to assume that you are cataloging your record in the previous cataloging standard, which has not been the cataloging standard for a number of years now, which would be AACR2. Now, there are still some libraries that are still using AACR2, but that is not the current cataloging standard. So in order to use the current cataloging standard, you have to choose I for RDA. There is not a choice for R for RDA in that field. So you have to choose I for ISBD, which means ISBD punctuation is included. It's not straightforward. Nothing in RDA is. You have to choose I. And in the 040 field, which is in the regular fields in the record, which are not in the leader of the record, and you'll understand that soon, you need to make sure that in your subfield E, the you have RDA. Also, a lot of the time you're going to have to fill out the subfield B in your 040 unless your template is filled to that somehow. So you may have to type in ENG for English to make sure that the record is saved to ensure that it is a record that is an English speaking country. So in the general principles for this, that it's important for standardization, that these are the preferred sources for each element. First, that the source is with the title proper, and next that the whole resource is in priority order. So we record data in brackets if it's taken from outside the resource. So um, for the exception for that would be if it's not needed for resources that typically don't have bibliographic data on the resource, like a photograph or archival sources or something, or sculpture or etc. Um, and we'll concentrate on resources with pages, leaves, etc., or images of these, for example, PDFs. So preferred sources are sources with pages or leaves, etc. So when I'm talking about, or when we're talking about in these PowerPoint presentations, things like 2.2.2.2, that is the actual RDA manual reference. So according to RDA rule 2.2.2.2, this is the rule. So the reason I'm mentioning this is because if you want to look it up in the RDA manual, which you can't, well, I guess you can do if your organization or you personally want to buy it, which is probably extremely expensive, or if you want to look it up in the RDA toolkit. That's the citation. 2.2.2.2. So priority order according to RDA 2.2.2.2 is title page, title sheet, etc. Cover, caption, masthead, or colophon. So that's your priority order. So your first priority is going to be you're recording things according to the title page, title sheet, etc. And then if you don't have that, then after that you go by the cover. And if you don't have that, then you go by a caption. If you don't have that, you go by a masthead. A masthead, if you guys don't know what that is like what you see at like the top of like a newspaper or a magazine or something, or like inside the cover of a magazine. If you don't have that, you go by a colophon. So if you don't know what a colophon is something that was originally what was written at the back of, like, say, a medieval manuscript. That was where all the information was written, was at the very, very back of a medieval manuscript. And it would say, okay, so this book was finished on this date in this place, sometimes by this person. So then later that was adapted to print when printing was developed in the Western world. It wasn't invented in the Western world, although for all intents and purposes it was. I don't think that Johann Gutenberg necessarily learned it from Korea, which is where it first happened, at least in terms of movable, um, you know, type, made from metal. It happened in Korea about 250 years before that. For those of you who don't know that. But um, but you have a colophon at the ends of the earliest printed books, too, also in the West. So up until through like maybe the mid 1500s. So books in the West, like that look like codices, all the way up until at least the mid 1500s. Like you're not going to have like a title page or anything like that until at least the mid 1500s. So that's what a colophon is. Um, so for resources issued in more than one part, for example, serials, multi-part items, or integrating resources, you're going to have to look at RDA rule 2.1.2.3. Okay. So 2.2.2.3 is your rule for film or DVD, etc., and that has your priority order. Um, so you're generally going to have to start with the item itself. And then you're going to have to so you look at the item, you have to take it out of the carton that it's in, and then look at the carton. If you don't have the information on the item itself, like the DVD or whatever, then you have to look at the carton and then you have to mention that the title is from a carton or whatever, or what a container that it came out of. And then 2.2.2.4 is resources not covered by 2.2.2.2 or 2.2.2.3. Okay. 2.2.4 is sources external to the resource. In priority order, you start with accompanying materials, or after that, other published descriptions of the resource, or after that, container not issued as part of the resource, or after that, any other source, for example, a reference source which indicates how the resource is commonly known. And then the distinction goes between transcribed elements and recorded elements. So for transcribed elements, generally accept the data as found on the resource, or for recorded elements, the found information is often adjusted. For example, the hyphens in an ISBN are not recorded. So take what you see and accept what you get is the ICP principle of representation. So generally, record what is on the resource as an accurate representation, and it encourages reuse of found data. Rule 1.4, in the language and script in which they appear. So non-transcribed elements are adding data within an element, language and script of element to which it is added. Supplying an element means generally in English, and recording other elements, for example, notes, you would do so, I guess, in English. And for non-Latin scripts, the Library of Congress policy is to record a transliteration instead or to give both using MARC 880 fields. Alternatives at 1.7.1 allow for in-house guidelines in lieu of RDA instructions for capitalization, punctuation, numerals, symbols, abbreviations, etc. So for Library of Congress PCC policy PS 1.7.1, which you could probably Google, you have general guidelines and transcription. And LC policy generally adheres to take what you see and accept what you get. The following slides emphasize LC policy. LCPCCPS 1.7.1, first alternative. For capitalization of transcribed elements, catalogers are encouraged but not required to follow Appendix A. It is permitted to take what you see on the resource, your choice, but don't do a mix. It's encouraged in the 24510 field. For example, Cairo, the city victorious, like you have Cairo, like a title, Cairo, subtitle The City Victorious by Max Rodenbeck. And this is the edition, first vintage departures edition. But acceptable could be Cairo and then all caps The City Victorious by Max Rodenbeck. And in all titles after that, first vintage departures edition. I would never, ever suggest you put anything in all caps, ever, 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 ever. But I don't know, apparently by LC policy, all caps is acceptable. I never take copy. I never use copy that ever has all caps like that. LCPCCPS 1.7 Point one, first alternative, follow the guidelines in 1.7.32, 1.7.9, and in the appendices. Generally, transcribed what is on the resource. So, where in RDA are the instructions? So, like for a quiz, if we were actually sitting in a classroom, I could say, which WMI entity are you generally cataloging? So the answer would be the manifestation, would be which WMI entity are you generally cataloging? Chapter 2, identifying manifestations and items. Information used by producers of resources to identify their products, title, statement of responsibility, edition statement, publication date, etc. Information users rely on to determine if the resource is the one sought, distinguish between similar resources, so find and identify. The primary focus is on LC core elements. So, title and statement of responsibility, edition, numbering of serials, production, publication, distribution, manufacture, and copyright, and series, mode of issuance, and frequency, and notes. And ground rules. Title and statement of responsibility, the title elements and statement of responsibility elements. So for title 2.3, you have the title proper, the parallel title proper, other title information, variant titles, earlier title proper, and later title proper. So title proper or 2.3.2 you have as a core element. The scope is the chief name of a resource or the title normally used when citing the resource. So sources are preferred sources within the resource, the title page, then priority order or 2.2.2, and then if none on the resource, priority order of other sources. So title of manifestation, not work, and mark 245, subfield A, subfield N, or subfield P. So title proper, choosing the title proper. Occasionally, a resource includes several strings of title-like data. So which string is the title proper? Which strings might be recorded as other elements? 2.3.2.5 indicates that you should consider sequence, layout, and typography in making this decision, and also common sense. So the next few slides show examples of such situations. So here you have the Oxford History of England, English History, 1914 to 1945, A.J.P. Taylor, Oxford at the Clarendon Press, and the Home Office, Young Adult Offenders, report of the Advisory Council on the Penal System, and then it has her London, Her Majesty's Stationery Office. So, of course, here, this Oxford History of England is actually the series title of this series of books. And the actual title proper is English History 1914 to 1945. And likewise here, the title proper is Young Adult Offenders, published by the Home Office. And the subtitle is Report of the Advisory Council. Oh, Report of the Advisory Council on the Penal System is probably a series title. But sometimes even the typography can be misleading because based on the typography, one might think that this title proper is Washington, D.C., but that ignores common sense and grammar, which requires you to record as title proper the entire string, MapEasy's guide map to Washington, D.C. Here, typography might suggest the title proper is 52 or 52-day walks, but Tim Anderson's is an integral part of the title and thus must be included in the title proper Tim Anderson's 52-day walks in and around Cape Town. The typography on this title page only confuses us. It uses 4 different fonts for the title strings. You can look at other sources within the resource to inform your decision. In this case, other sources, cover, back cover, last printed page, indicate the publisher's intent that the title is through the walls. Sometimes you just use common sense. The title is neither the Book of nor London. The facing pages constitute a collective title page. An alternative title is treated as part of the title proper. The title proper does not include a parallel title, other title information, or a parallel other title information. The second part of a title proper that consists of 2 parts, each of which has the form of an independent title joined by a word such as or its equivalent in another language. So listening to pop music, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Led Zeppelin. Note, this is not the same as a variant title. Transcribe a title as it appears on the source of information. Examples, many in 2.3.1.4 and 2.3.2.7. So the most of P.G. Wodehouse, IV or Fourth Informe de Gobierno, Supplement to the Conquest of Peru and Mexico, and I don't know if that's Gamma Calculus maybe, and Computer Theory, L'Éducation, Vance, Cinq en plus tard, et après. Changes in title proper, and that is 2.3.212 through 2.3.213. Errors, don't correct errors for monographs, provide a note to explain. So you would have that in a 246. And do correct errors for serials and integrating resources. Title proper, collective titles with a collective title, record the collective title as the title proper, 3 collective stories. Without a collective title, record the titles as they appear on the source, ended by space, semicolon space. So this preference to use the collective title applies even if the title page also lists the individual titles. Parallel title proper is a core element for LC and PCC. So the scope is title proper in another language and or script. So the source is any source within the resource. Follow instructions for transcription of titles. Punctuation is space, =, space. Mark 245 subfield B for serials recorded in the 246 field. So here are some examples. Single parallel title is Einführung in die Blutmorphologie, is also subfield B, Introduction to the Morphology of Blood, and more than one parallel title you record in the order on the resource. So Straßenkarte der Schweiz is the same as Carte routière de la Suisse, which is equal to Road Map of Switzerland. Other title information 2.3.4 is a core element for LC. The scope is information that appears in conjunction with and is subordinate to the title proper of a resource. So explicit instruction regarding sources is on the same source as the title proper. So Mark 245 subfield B, examples, many more in 2.3.4.3, Kerouac, subfield B, the definitive biography, linguistics, and language behavior abstract, subfield B, LLBA. Other title information continued can include any phrase appearing with a title proper that is indicative of the character, contents, etc. of the resource, or the motives for or occasion of its production, publication, etc. Includes subtitles, etc. Does not include variations on the title proper, for example, spine titles, cover titles, etc., or designations of parts, sections, or supplements. Variant titles 2.3.6. Scope equals a title associated with a resource that differs from a title recorded as the title proper, a parallel title proper, other title information, parallel other title information, earlier title proper, later title proper, key title, or abbreviated title, not alternative title. Examples in 2.3.6.3, Mark 246. Examples 245 NFL rocks, but in the 246 subfield A, National Football League rocks, or 245 listening to popular music, or how I learned to stop worrying and love Led Zeppelin, but 246 is how I learned to stop worrying and love Led Zeppelin, or 245 Sechs kleine Stücke für Anfänger is this equals subfield B, 6 easy pieces for beginners, but a 246, 6 easy pieces for beginners. Or 245 for the moment, or 246, we're still standing. Earlier title proper is a title proper appearing on an earlier iteration of an integrating resource that differs from that on the current iteration. Take from sources and earlier iterations of an integrating resource using the source specified for the title proper. Record if considered important for identification or access in MARC 247. Later title proper 2.3.8 is a title proper appearing on a later issue or part of a multi-part monograph or serial that differs from that on the first or earliest part, issue, or part. Take from sources in later issues or parts of a multi-part monograph or serial using the source specified for the title proper. Record if considered important for identification or access in MARC 246. Statement of Responsibility 2.4. Core element if it relates to title proper, and the scope is a statement relating to the identification and or function of any persons, families, or corporate bodies responsible for the creation of or contributing to the realization of the intellectual or artistic content of the resource. MARC 245, subfield C. Statement of Responsibility Sources 2.4.2.2. Take from the following sources in this order of preference. A, the same source as the title proper. B, another source within the resource itself. C, one of the other sources of information specified at 2.2.4. Per LCPCC PS or policy 2.2.4, record in brackets only if taken from outside the resource. So transcription as it appears on the source of information C.1, C1.7. So LC PCC PS 2.4.1.4 option generally do not abridge a statement of responsibility. So, for example, source Dr. Logan Carroll, Harvard Medical School. RDA allows, so in the 245 field, so you'll have in your 245 field, you have like title, whatever, title, subtitle, blah, 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 and then slash, and then subfield C, Logan Carroll, period. And then LCPCC, you have showing again, 245 field, title, subtitle, blah, 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 subfield C, doctor, period, Logan Carroll, comma, Harvard Medical School, period. Else, so multiple entities in a statement 2.4.1.5. You've got LCPCC PS or policy statement. PS is a policy statement. 2.4.1.5. Generally do not omit names in a statement of responsibility. So, source by Susan Brown, Melanie Carlson, Stephen Lindell, Kevin Ott, and Janet Wilson. So RDA allows 245 subfield A, title, subtitle, subfield C by Susan Brown, and then in square parentheses, and for others, square parentheses, end bracket, period. And then LCPCC 245 subfield A, title, subtitle, subfield C, by Susan Brown, comma, Melanie Carlson, comma, Stephen Lindell, comma, Stephen Knott, or Kevin Knott, comma, and Janet Wilson. Okay, so statement of responsibility, multiple statements 2.4.1.6. Only the first is required. See core statement at 2.4. Other statements of responsibility are optional. If you record more than the first, record them in the order indicated by the sequence, layout, or typography of the source of information, separated by space, subcolon, space. Statement of responsibility examples. Par, Charles M. Schultz, edited and introduced by Mrs. C.F. Layell. I actually don't think that C.F. Layell is correct, and same with any of these others. I think you need to have C. Space F. Same with all these others you see on this page. It needs to be L. Space H. But I could be wrong. Just saying. Better to be on the safe side. L.H. Booth, whatever, blah, blah, blah. By F. Scott and Zelda Fitzgerald, space, subcolon, space. Selected by Scotty Fitzgerald Smith and Matthew J. Breckley, space, subcolon, space, with a forward. Make sure you spell forward correctly because this, I swear to God, is one of the most misspelled words I see and have seen as an editor, by the way, but also see misspelled and not fixed in published books. It is spelled Foreword. It is not spelled forward like marching forward, like a forward march. A forward march is spelled Forward. That's forward in a moving forward direction. Forward means the forward, like as in the word of a sentence, to a book. So it is Foreword. That is the correct way to spell it. Don't make that mistake. Okay. So only the first is required. And then collected by, in square brackets, Chet Williams. Okay. So those are all statements of responsibility examples. Statement of responsibility noun phrases. Okay. Marilyn's Daughter, a novel by John Recke. The Coming of the Night, a novel by John Recke. And then what we have is, so in this case, you need to write it as so. So you see how you have this 245. You have Marilyn's Daughter, so that's your title, and then space, colon, space, subfield B, a novel, space, slash, space, forward slash space, subfield C, by John Recke, because this is all in one. All of this by John Recke needs to come after that subfield C, because that's how it's written here. However, all right, but it still needs to be the same here. Oh, no, it's not the same here because it all comes after that, the coming of the night. The coming of the night, but we don't have a subtitle. Then we have a space, forward slash space, subfield C, a novel by John Recke. Edition statement 2.5, core elements, designation of edition, designation of named revision of an edition. Scope is a statement identifying the edition to which a resource belongs, may include a designation of a named revision of an edition, may include a statement or statements of responsibility relating to the edition and or to a named revision of an edition. Edition statement, sources, and transcription. Sources, priority order, the same source as the title proper, Another source within the resource itself, one of the other sources specified at 2.2. Transcription as it appears on the source 1.7. Use only those abbreviations found in the sources, Appendix B4. Record numerals in the form in which they appear on the source 1.8.2 alternative. Mark 250 subfield A. So here are some examples. So 250, they're all in the 250 field. Second edition. And then 250 Nouvelle Edition, and then 250 third revised edition. But because they appear this way on the source, you could have 52nd edition like that, or you could have like second enlarged ed period, comma, revised. Numbering of serials, core elements, numeric and or alphabetic designation of first issue or part of sequence. Chronological designation of first issue or part of sequence. These designations for the last issue or part of sequence. Scope equals the identification of each of the issues or part of a serial. Generally, transcribe as on the resource. So, volume VOL period space 1 comma space NO period space 1, July/August 2005. Production, publication, distribution, manufacture, copyright 264. That's the 264 field. It is now the 264 field because that's an RDA, but in AACR2 it's the 260 field. So you may see that a lot. 2.7 core element for resources issued in unpublished form. Scope, a statement identifying the place. Am I recording? Oh, crap. Let me just pause for a sec. Oh, good. I'm still recording. Oh my God. I've been talking for so long. That was really awful. That was a terrible feeling. All right. I've been talking for a while. Okay. So, a statement identifying the place or places of production, producer or producers, and date or dates of production of a resource in an unpublished form. So we will not cover this element in detail. Consult 2.7 as necessary. Okay. Publication statement 2.8, core elements for published resources, place, publisher, date. Scope equals a statement identifying the place or places of publication, publisher, or publishers, and date or dates of publication of a resource. Sources for each sub-element in 2.8, LCPCC, policy statement instructions for CIP materials. Mark field 264, second indicator 1. And then place of publication 2.8.2, core element if more than one, only the first is required. Priority order, same source as the publisher's name, another source within the resource, and other sources specified in 2.2.4. Transcribe as it appears on the source, include both the local place name and the larger jurisdiction if present. May add larger jurisdiction if not already on the resource, catalog, or judgment. Place of publication not identified. If it's not identified, supply the place or a probable place of publication whenever possible for benefit of users and catalogers. LCPCCPS 2.8.2.6 reinforces this preference for supplying a place. If no place can be determined, then you do exactly this. You do this place of publication not identified and within square brackets. But then you must also record a distributor information 2.9.2 core if requirement to be removed as of April 2015. May still record additionally per judgment. Place of publication examples. So here you have 264 blank first indicator and then one second indicator of one, and then you have London. Um, just London. Or you could have the same thing, but London and then space, semicolon, space, second repeating subfield A Boston. Or same thing here, subfield A London, space, semicolon, space, subfield A New York. Or London and then New York and Boston, all with repeating subfields A. And then down here, you see the same thing where you've got Red Oak and then you've got in square brackets Iowa. Um, you can supply a place like Toronto, or you can do a probable local place like Munich with a question mark, or you can do a known country, state, etc., Canada, or probable like Spain. Publisher's name is a core element. If more than one, only the first is required. Sources priority order, same source as the publisher's name, another source within the resource. Other sources specified in 2.2.4. Transcribe as it appears on the source. LCPCC PS 2.8.4.3 generally do not omit levels in the corporate hierarchy and record terms indicating on the function of the entity as they appear on the source. The record publisher not identified if no publisher is named within the resource and the publisher cannot be identified from other sources, and record in brackets because the statement is not from the resource. Probable publisher is not allowed. Um, Publisher's name example. So you got, again, the same thing, New York, space, colon, space, subfield B, J Wilson. Again, this should really be J dot space J dot Wilson, which is not here. That's wrong. Publishing company. Not like Wilson Pub dot co dot. It needs to all be spelled out because we used to do this Wilson Pub dot co dot in AACR2, but now you have to spell everything out. So source, Humanities Association Literature Division, Renaissance Literature section. So now you have Chicago, space, colon, space, Humanities Association Literature Division, Renaissance Literature section. You got to spell the whole thing out. So these are all options. Okay, now date of publication 2.8.6. Core element, sources, priority order, same sources, publisher's name, another source within the resource, other sources specified in 2.2.4. Record dates as they appear on the source of information 2.8.1.4. Do not convert Roman numerals to Arabic, LCPCC PS 1.8.2, first alternative. If the date on the source is not of the Gregorian or Julian calendar, add dates of Gregorian or Julian calendar. 2.8.6.5. So this is multi-part monograph, serials, and integrating resources. If the first issue is available, do it like 1988 dash. If it has ceased or is complete and the first and last issues are available, do it like this. If the publication has ceased or is complete and the last issue is available, but not the first, do it like this. If the date is the same for all issues, do it like this. If you have an integrating resource, supply the date of the last update if considered to be important like this. And dates for multi-part monographs, serials, and integrating resources. If the first and or last issue, part or iteration is not available, supply an approximate date or dates like 1998 on, earliest issue available like this, and so on. Just follow it like this. If the date or dates cannot be approximated, do not record a date of publication. Date of publication not identified, supply the date or approximate date of publication whenever possible. LCPCCPS 2.8.6.6 reinforces this preference for supplying a date. If no date can be determined, Put in date of publication not identified exactly like that with square brackets around it, exactly like that. But then you must also record distributor information. Core if requirement to be removed April 2015, so ignore that. You may still record it for judgment up until then, so now you must put this date of publication not identified. All right. Supplying dates, actual year known. If it's not obvious on it, but you know that the year anyway, you can put it in square brackets. Either one of two consecutive years, like this, probable year. You can do it like this, probable range of years. I don't know if you can really do this anymore with these two bottom ones. You probably have to just go up through this probable year and drop these bottom two out. How do you determine a date when there is no clear publication date? Copyright, distribution, or manufacture data. Often you can infer from a copyright date. You may be able to reasonably infer from distribution or manufacture dates, or you can also get hints from forward, where here's an example where it's spelled incorrectly. She spelled it wrong, or whoever put this together spelled it wrong. Remember these possibilities? Yeah, so I don't think you can use those anymore. Not before, not after, between, and that's pre-RDA. Supply probable publication data. I don't know how well you can really do that. I don't know if you can still do that. I don't think you can. Um, you can't you can't phrase it that way. You have to just say a date. It has to be treated like a single date. And then what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to put in a 500 nil field, which is a note, and then explain why you chose that date. Supplying publication data. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, you can do this. This is okay. Um, okay, so here's another example. Sometimes distribution data must be recorded to provide useful information. So here's how you would do distribution data. So in this case, you do the 264, but instead of a 1, you put a subfield 2 and do it like this. And it has to be distribution, not publishing data. So that has to be very specific. And in other cases, distribution or manufacturing information can be extremely useful. Manifestations without ISBNs, small press publications, and other situations in which the information is considered useful. So this is a distribution statement only when publication information is not identified. And this is in PS 2.9. And this is, like I pointed out, 264 second indicator 2. And then manufacturing, and then this is second indicator 3. Copyright date is in PS 2.11, and in this case, it's 264 second indicator 4, and you only have a subfield C. It's not a subfield A. You have to replace the subfield A with a subfield C, and you must use this like copyright symbol or phonogram symbol, but that's only if it's a pressing, like a musical recording. So you're almost only going to be using the copyright symbol if you're using the copyright date like that. So it would look like this. Okay. All right, so ignore all this 2015 stuff. Series, mode of issuance, and frequency. LC policy is not to trace series. That means no authorized access points are made for a series, but some elements in the series statement are core and must be recorded in the Mark 290 field. The title proper of series numbering, etc. So it's 491st indicator 0. So this is according to 2.12.1.5, and they record changes in series statements as recorded in 2.12.1.6. Series title page, another source within the resource, other sources as indicated in 2.2.4. Record the series title proper as you do other titles in 2.3.1, and then take what you see in capitalization. So here's what a series would look like, for example, like English linguistics, comma, 1500, 1750. An ISS in a series and of subseries is also a core element. 2.2.4, so mark 490 subfield X. So it would actually look, it's 2.12.9, and it would look like this. So subfield V for volume, like 32, and then subfield V band, for example, whatever. Bond in German is like volume. Mode of issuance 2.13 is a code element for LCPCC. Categorization reflecting whether a resource is issued in one or more parts the way it is updated, and it's an intended termination. Use evidence presented by the resource itself or on any accompanying material or container. Closed vocabulary terms in 2.13.1.3. Mode of issuance. So this is in the MARC leader at the bibliographic level. So M means a single unit or a multi-part monograph. S is a serial, and I is integrating resource. So this is what it looks like in the bibliographic leader, and this is a drop-down menu. So M is a monograph, like a book. S is a serial, like a periodical. I is integrating resource, which is, it can be like a website or something like that. Frequency is what you have for like the frequency of a serial or the frequency of like usually a serial. So it's a core element. So that's how frequently an issue will arrive. Like, is it annual? Is it monthly? Is it bi-monthly? It's closed vocabulary terms in 2.14.1.3, and that's in MARC 310 or MARC 321. For example, weekly or monthly. Identifier for the manifestation is a core element. The scope is a character string associated with a manifestation that serves to differentiate that manifestation from other manifestations. What is this? Sources take from any source. So ISBN, ISSN, and others based on internationally recognized schemes. Those assigned by publishers, etc., following their internal schemes. Fingerprints, for example, constructed by combining groups of characters from specified pages of a printed resource. Music publisher numbers and plate numbers, not URLs, RDA 4.6. So recording the identifier for the manifestation. Record in accordance with prescribed display format, ISBN, ISSN, URN. For a resource consisting of two or more parts, if there's an identifier for the resource as a whole and identifiers for the individual parts, record the identifier for the resource as a whole. If known to be incorrect for the resource, record it as it appears and indicate that it is incorrect, canceled, or invalid as inappropriate. If the resource bears more than one identifier of the same type, add a brief qualification. So these are O2Os. O2Os is like the ISBN. So this can be a repeating field. So you can have multiple ones of these in your record. Because, for example, you can have one title and a whole bunch of ISBNs. So here's like an ISBN, but then here's another one. And then that's like, usually that's a subfield Q. But for example, that's like paperback, PBK, or this is like a US ISBN, or like a subfield Z is these little guys go in a subfield Q. Subfield Z means it's an invalid ISBN. Bibliographic data that provides Further detail about the resource goes in the notes field, and it might not appear in a preferred source, sometimes called details on an RDA and often recorded in a via 5XX field. So 2.17, scope, a note providing information on attributes of the manifestation, sources take from any source. Core elements for LCPCC, note on title, note on issue, part or iteration used as the basis for identification of the resource. Note on title 2.17.2, scope. Note providing information on the source from which a title was taken, the date the title was viewed, variations in titles, inaccuracies, deletions, etc., other information relating to a title. So LCPCC core, source of title, always record source of title information in a CONSER standard record. So CONSER is like like an agency that like governs how you record serials. Note on issue, part, or iteration used as basis for identification 2.17.13. So a note identifying what was used to identify the resource, the issue or part of a multi-part monograph or serial, the iteration of an integrating resource, the date an online resource is viewed. So LCPCC core always given to CONSER records, multi-part monographs. If the description is not based on the first issue or part, mark 588 field. 588, description based on part 2, published 1988, 1998, et cetera, et cetera. So not LC core, note on statement of responsibility, note on edition statement, note on numbering of serials, production statement, publication statement, distribution statement, manufacturer statement, copyright date, series statement, or frequency. And that is the end of that slideshow. Okay, so I think that's the only one for today. Let me just double check. Yeah. Yep, that's it. So, there's like a PDF copy of a monograph example, but it's pretty basic. There's these connection browser tips for constant data, but that's not going to be very helpful because we don't have connection browser anymore. So that's pretty much the only thing. I'm going to try and scan these chapters tonight, but I may have to get them done tomorrow and just load up this and the slides. So, because I still have to do a bunch more work for tomorrow. So, but it shouldn't take me too long to scan those chapters tomorrow or early tomorrow evening. So that's it. This still has to process and also process on YouTube. So hopefully this will get to you shortly. Anyway, I will see you all soon. Bye.